So we can know all this. We can know that it's better to be friendly and to be supportive than to shame and scold our children for being who they are. But there's also sometimes a grief process, isn't there? So I talk about snapshot child syndrome, meaning that we have a snapshot of the child we thought we were getting, and it's a mismatch between the one we got.
Yeah.
Whether that means you have a child in a wheelchair and you were picturing a child who was an athlete, or you have a child who struggles to remember her backpack, and you were picturing a child who's more like you were, a very dutiful, organized, academically skillful kid. There's tens of thousands of ways that we can experience that mismatch. And before I think we show up, and at least for me, one of the ingredients in doing what you're talking about, managing how we respond, don't you think we also sometimes have to grieve and just allow ourselves to just feel sad that this is the path before us?
I think there will be grief over and over again. I think there's grief when there's a diagnosis, or just grief early on when you notice that other people's 3-year-olds seem to be able to cope with a minor frustration without falling apart completely, as an example. But I think that it comes back over and over again when you see someone else's 12-year-old can handle a high level of responsibility when your 12-year-old can't remember her backpack, right? I think we all got the child we got, and it's I think, a sacred responsibility to welcome that child, accept that child, nurture that child to become their very best self, and for their gifts, because every child has gifts. Child with Down syndrome has gifts. Every child has gifts. And so for that child to flourish and contribute those gifts to the world, they need a parent who fully accepts them. And yet, for us to do that, there is the hard work of grieving, not just once, but cyclically over and over again. And I think what often happens is that we feel guilty about the grief. We feel disloyal to our child somehow. And so we don't allow ourselves to feel it. But when we take any feeling and stuff it in the emotional backpack, again, we are no longer in control of it consciously. And so it will start to rear its head, and we will get anxious. What happens